Hey, you have already connected Google Analytics to BigQuery, right? Right? No? Well, let's take a look at what you're missing out in GA4 without BigQuery and go through a few simple steps to get you started. I will cover following topics. First, how BigQuery adds value to your analytics setup. Second, how to create Google Cloud account and link BigQuery to Google Analytics. Then I will show examples how to find and query your data. And finally, explain potential costs of this setup. So let's get started. So why even bother? How BigQuery adds value to your analytics setup? First of all, BigQuery is a data warehouse solution by Google that allows you to store and manage any database on the cloud where you can easily access and analyze your data. Once you connect Google Analytics 4 to BigQuery, it will create a raw data exports either daily or even in the real time, depending on the export type. And since this data is stored outside of Google Analytics under your Google Cloud account, this leads to the first benefit, data ownership. You have full control of how you analyze your data, the location where you store it, and how long you get to keep it. Even if Google releases some new analytics version like GA5 and deletes everything that you had in GA4, as it is currently happening with Universal Analytics, you will still have access to exported data in BigQuery. In Universal Analytics, this export was available only for GA360 customers that most of the analytics users couldn't afford. So having a possibility to export and manage your data on your own is probably one of the most loved features of GA4 update. Ability to access raw, unaggregated data opens up a chain of additional benefits. Your data will not be sampled. You will see full event export and get more accurate insights on your user behavior. By default, custom reports in GA4 will be based only on a subset of your data once you're looking at more than 10 million events. More than that, all information displayed in default GA4 reports is only an estimation, so you will not see exact numbers of users, events, etc. So using BigQuery, you can look at the most accurate information. Exported data can be joined together with offline and other online data sources in the same report. For example, you could join online activity collected by Google Analytics together with CRM data and understand your customer journey better. Using raw data, you can also analyze and segment your data the way you want. You have no limitations imposed by user interface or available report templates. The data analysis that you can do is only limited by your or your data analyst SQL knowledge. This way, you also have a better understanding of how your report is built and why you see certain values. You often don't have that level of clarity when using default metrics and reports inside of the user interface due to missing or unclear documentation or misinterpretation of metrics and dimensions. If you can create custom reports from the raw data, of course, you can also visualize them in any BI tool that you like, just by connecting them to BigQuery table. So this is another benefit of having a data export in place and not being locked in with visualization options offered by GA4 UI or Looker Studio. For example, you can display your GA4 data in Power BI, Tableau, etc. And the last one but not least, with export in place, technically you have no limitations on data retention period. In free Google Analytics version, you can create custom reports only including up to 14 months in the past. So if you want to have a custom report that shows data, let's say for the last 2 years, then having BigQuery export would be the cheapest way to do this. So if you're feeling convinced that this feature will benefit your company, let's proceed and set up BigQuery export in Google Analytics. First of all, you can check if you already have BigQuery export enabled in Google Analytics. Open Admin section from the left menu at the bottom. From here, find Product Links section and click on BigQuery. If you haven't linked BigQuery to this account yet, you will see this view without any active links. In other case, you might see BigQuery project ID that you can open. If that's your case, just click on the BigQuery link and see who has created that, and then contact the person to give you access to BigQuery data. At the moment, you can link Google Analytics only to one BigQuery project, so if it's already in place, you would need either to get access or create a new link. Okay, so to create a new link, click on Link button, And then you need to select BigQuery project where you want to import the data. You might see no BigQuery projects here, or you are unable to create a link. And there could be multiple reasons for that. First, you haven't created any BigQuery projects on Google Cloud yet. And second, you have access to BigQuery project, but your current Google account might have insufficient access rights in both platforms. To create a link in BigQuery, you need to have owner rights and at least editor rights in Google Analytics property. If somebody else already manages BigQuery or other Google Cloud projects in your organization, then it might be easier to grant that person edit rights to GA4 and ask to create this link. Otherwise, you will need to set up a Google Cloud project on your own. To create a new Google Cloud account and a project, go to cloud.google.com and sign in with your Google account. It should be the same account where you have at least edit rights in Google Analytics. So on the top, you should see either sign in button or the console button if you are already logged in into your Google account. Click on that. If you enter for the first time, you need to accept terms of service. So let's do that. So in the top navigation, you will find a drop-down where you can see either projects that have been created by default for you, or you can set up a new project specifically for BigQuery. Let's create a new project by clicking on this button. Now provide a distinct name to your project. It doesn't really matter how you name it here. And if you have an organization account, you might want to select it here. So I don't have any organization for this account, so I will click Create. After a few seconds, your new project should be created and you should see a notification here in the navigation. Now you can navigate to your project either by clicking Select Project or from the drop-down on the top. By default, BigQuery API is enabled on new projects. However, if you have an existing project, you can double-check if it's in place by searching APIs and Services. And from here, open Library. Now search for BigQuery API. Click on the first result, and you should see that enabled here. If not, just click on the Enable button that would appear here. From this point, if you go back to BigQuery link page in Google Analytics, you should be able to see and select your BigQuery project. So you can click on Choose a BigQuery project once again, and we can see our new project appears here in the list. You can proceed with the linking now if you want. However, I would recommend adding billing details to Google Cloud as well before going forward. If you don't add the billing account, you will work in a sandbox mode. This means that your data export will be stored maximum of up to 60 days and then deleted from BigQuery. So you won't have more than 2 months of data at the same time. This could be okay for testing or learning purposes, but not for the long-term setup. To add billing account, open your Cloud Console once again and go to the billing section here and create a new billing account. If you already have access to some billing accounts in your organization, you can select them here. For completely new accounts, you will see a trial sign-up flow, and if you agree to the terms, it will ask you to provide billing information. Now, at this point, many people get scared that if they provide credit card information, then Google will charge them insane amounts of money just for using BigQuery, so they link GA4 without billing info. However, if you have just a regular website below 1 million visitors per month, chances are that your monthly storage costs will be close to zero or very low, at least first few years. So let's quickly break down the cost of using BigQuery. There are two main components of BigQuery pricing: computing costs and storage costs. Computing costs are applied when you work with your exported data by running SQL queries. They become relevant once you already have data export from Analytics and you are creating custom reports. These costs are not applied when you are initially exporting and storing your data inside BigQuery. Each month you get 1 TB of computing volume for free, and each next TB will cost you around $6 at the moment. Storage costs are directly related to the amount of events that you have in Google Analytics and store in BigQuery. First 10 GB of storage are free, and then you will be charged around 2 cents per gigabyte for recent data and 1 cent per gigabyte for any events older than 3 months. So data imported from GA4 will be mostly active storage for the most recent data and long-term storage for the data that is longer than 90 days. So you can see for the US, it's 2 cents and 1 cent for older data, and this price can vary depending on the region where you store your data. 10 gigabytes of data will be around 6 million events as per Google. So until you store more than that, you won't be charged for the storage a single cent. You can easily estimate how many events you usually get per month by opening Google Analytics homepage and from the overview card select appropriate date range. For example, we have 7 days here and we can change it to 30 days. For example, in this demo account, we have roughly 3 million events per month from 80,000 users. So you would start seeing first costs in about 2 months, and that would be approximately 6 cents per month plus historical data cost. Note that if you're using streaming data export, which is adding data to BigQuery in real time, additional costs will apply. Still, those costs will be very low for most of the GA4 properties. I have a separate video dedicated to querying real-time data from BigQuery that you can find in the description for more details. In real world, 99% of your total BigQuery costs will be coming from computing queries once you actually start creating large reports from this data. So hopefully this gives a better understanding of the costs of storage in BigQuery and that you can safely add your billing details to store more than 2 months of data. Now, regardless if you have added billing method or not, you can now finalize linking of BigQuery to Google Analytics. Select new project name that you have created and click Confirm. Choose location where you want to store event data. This should follow your company policies and locations, so make sure to consult with your DPO or just use common sense. If your business is located in European Union, probably location should be somewhere inside Europe, and similar for US. Then you can configure what data you want to export. First of all, in free version of GA4, there is a limit of daily exports of up to 1 million events per day. So Google allows you to exclude certain data streams or events from the export to comply with that limit. If you click on Configure Data Streams and Events, you can select Data Stream and also exclude certain events by name. If you click on Specify Event by Name and enter Scroll, then scroll events won't be included in the export. So in the similar way, you can exclude any events that are not adding any value, or you can use other events to achieve the same goal. Next, you can export advertising identifiers if you have a mobile app stream. Then you can choose either to have only daily export or real-time data, which is called streaming here. While daily data will be free up to certain volume, you can't pick streaming real-time export if you haven't added a billing account. Streaming export will cost you around 5 cents per 1 gigabyte of streaming data or 5 cents per 600,000 events. So if you have 600,000 events per day, it will cost you around 5 cents per day if you enable this export. If you're not okay with a couple of day delay for daily export, then I would recommend enabling this as well. I have a separate video covering all of the benefits of this feature on my channel, and I will link it in the description as well. Okay, and the last option we have user data export. This would be useful if you want to monitor how user level attributes have changed over time or get number of users whose lifetime value has increased in certain date ranges. And you can do the same for other user attributes as well. This export won't contain any event data as the standard daily export. So once you're ready, click Next. Review the settings, and once you submit, you should see success message that BigQuery link has been created. Now, typically within 24 hours, you will start seeing first data in BigQuery. So let's see how to find it. After first 24 hours and sometimes a bit longer, you should be able to see your first data in Google Cloud. Open your Cloud Console again on cloudgoogle.com, and from navigation menu find BigQuery SQL Workspace. From there, expand your project name, and you should see a new dataset that is named Analytics _ your account ID. Inside of this dataset, you will find all the tables that are exported from Google Analytics based on what export type you have selected. Daily export will be under events_tables, and the number in the brackets will show how many tables or days of data you have there stored. So in this example, we have 74 days of data. Then events intraday is where streaming data export stores data. Typically, it is stored for the current day plus any days that haven't made it yet into daily export table. Once given date has made it to the daily export, it is deleted from the intraday table. And finally, you could see up to 2 additional tables if you have enabled user data export. You will see at least one table for pseudonymous users and one for visitors that had user ID attached. If you click on the daily export table, you will see column structure. Some columns can be expanded further since Google is using a nested structure. For example, we have event parameters that can have a key and a value. So for example, one event could have multiple different parameters passed to Google Analytics, and those will be added as sub-rows inside event parameters. And the same for other properties that might be passed together with this event. I will show how to unnest similar rows in the examples later. Under Details tab, you will see when data was added to the table by export, data size, and other relevant information. If you haven't added a billing account yet, you will see when your data will expire. You can set that to never, only if billing details were added. If you add billing details sometime later, then you will need to manually set each table not to expire by editing details from here and setting expiry time to none. If you don't adjust this, then data that was collected before billing account was added will be gradually deleted once it becomes 60 days old. Next, under the Preview tab, you can look at the actual data that was collected to get some sense of what information is captured before you start querying it. It will have nested rows, for example, in event params column. And if you want to extract, for example, page title, then you would need to do some unnesting here. Additionally, note that this will show data only for one day, as you can see in the table name. So we have events_2023 October 29. And this is because Google creates a separate table for each exported day. So if you want to preview a specific date, you can change that here from the dropdown. And then you have other tabs here, but they won't show any information unless additional APIs are enabled. So unless you're a hardcore data engineer, you probably won't need those. Now, if you switch to Events Intraday, you will see the same exact structure that we had in the daily exports. It's just the data here will be available in real time. Any event arriving on your website will be available here within seconds of their arrival. User export tables will be different in structure and contain only information about changed properties of a visitor. As you can see, the structure here is a bit more simple than in daily export. Okay, now let's see a few examples how we can query exported data. I will use a demo dataset from Google Merge Store to show you examples. However, they will work also on any production exports as well. So once you click on your events table, you can click on Query button to start. And let's do that in New tab. You will see a starter template with pre-populated table location. I will not explain the basic syntax of SQL queries in this video, but if this is the first time you see those, I would recommend exploring basics on your own first. There are plenty of free resources and tutorials out there. Just Google them or even ask ChatGPT if that's your thing. Okay, to access any data inside BigQuery, you'll need to provide a full path to the table. Here we have 3 components of that path. The project name, which is this one, and this should match the value that you see in the table explorer here above your dataset. So in my case, it's BigQuery public data. Then after a dot, we provide a dataset name, which is this one, and this should match your dataset name that you would see in the explorer here above your table. Finally, we have a table name after a dot, which is events and the date. For daily export, this part will be always the same, events_, and then the date where we are fetching the data. So if we now would query any data, this would fetch events only from 31st of January 2021. So let's get number of users for that date. And the way how you can do that and count users is by counting distinct values of user pseudo ID, which contains GA4 client ID or unique cookie value for each user. So let's click run and see what we have. When you run the query, you will see the results appearing at the bottom, and we see that we had 2,500 users for the given date. Now let's count total events as well. And we can do that simply by counting all of the rows that we had in the given date. So this will give us total event count. Let's run this. Okay, now we see that we had 26,000 events. Now let's say we are interested in a number of users who had a particular event on our website. Let's filter users who have seen internal website promotion. We can do that by adding additional condition here. Column name that we can use for event name will be just event name, and this should equal event that you want to filter. So let's say we want to filter view promotion events, and let's remove this. We don't need that. Let's try to run this. You will see we will now have less users and less total events. So what this says that we had 778 users who had event name view promotion, and in total we had almost 1200 total events. In general, event name column would contain any event name that you see in GA4 user interface, and this is the easiest way how you could filter visitors with particular event. You can also quickly double check what events are you receiving in your GA4 account by going to export table and click on preview. So here we can see event name columns, and this is what we are fetching in our query. Now, this data will be based only on a single day. In most scenarios, you'll be interested in intervals longer than 1 day. So how do you query multiple dates and tables at the same time? To achieve this, we will use the wildcard tables, which is a BigQuery feature. Let's remove date part from our table and leave only events underscore and replace it with a star, which is also a wildcard. Now, under where condition, we will add a special column called table suffix. And here we can provide a date range interval. So it will be between, add starting date as a string. Let's say we are interested to view data from the 1st of January. So I will use 2021, 1st of January, and then look at data until 31st of January. So at the end of the month. So again, 2021st, January 31st. And we forgot an end here. So what it does, it replaces the star symbol with the ones that we have provided here. So if we have, for example, 1st of January of 2021 and 31st here, then it will query all tables that match these both conditions. So if we have, for example, this table, it will get data from here, then any other tables that we have in between. So for example, this one will be included here as well. And all of this will be done dynamically. Now, if you run this query, you will see that in January 2021, we had 31,000 visitors and total event count was 53,000. Also, when you're querying more than 1 day, you should also look at how much data will be processed. And you can usually see that in the top right corner here. Until you see megabytes, you should be fine, but once you start seeing gigabytes and terabytes, be sure that you actually need to query this data because this will be added to your total costs. You can reduce amount of data processed by reducing the date range or removing some of the columns that you're querying from general GA4 table. The costs can pile up quickly if you are querying a lot of data. First terabyte is for free each month, as I've mentioned earlier, but the next ones will cost you around $6 each. Now let's go further and split this data per date as well. So let's take a look at our table. You will see that we have this event date column, and it contains date in the same format as we used for our tables. So let's use that to aggregate number of users per date. Add additional column here called event date, and we will also need to group it by event date as well. And also let's order this by ascending date. Let's run it. And now we have data per day. So we have number of users and total events per each day that have seen view promotion. And we could even use that in a chart if we wanted. One more thing that would be useful to get started is to know how to extract nested rows. If you look at the table in the preview, you'll notice that, for example, for row 1, we have multiple values under event params column. Each nested row has a key and a value. And we also have multiple nested columns depending on what value is stored. Is it string, is it integer, float, or double number? For example, session number is stored as integer under int value column, but current page location, which is page location, is stored under string value. Now, let's say you want to filter out users who have visited specific section of your website, like this section. And to do that, we will need to extract this page location value. In the same query, let's modify conditions to add additional subquery that will unnest event parameters. So let's add end, select value string value. We will unnest string value from event parameters column where key equals page location. So I will add from unnest. Here we'll use a column that we want to unnest, which is event params. And this column is the same that we have here. You see event params. And now we just need to filter it to include only values where key equals page location. Again, we are using this page location and this value because we have them in the table. So you can see key is coming from this column name and page location is coming from here. So this is where we store page URL. So this is why we use condition key equals page location, and we are unnesting from event parameters. And page location is stored under string value, and this is why we are using string value instead of int, float, or double. Now let's match it to the URL that we have seen earlier. I will add the like condition and paste the URL that we have seen in the first page view, which was shop by brand YouTube. So this condition will extract page location, and if URL contains shop by brand YouTube, then this data will be included here. Let's fetch only users who have seen the page, not seen promotion on this page. And the usual page view event in Google Analytics 4 is just page view. You can also double check that by looking at the preview of the table. We have page view event. Let's run it now. And that's it. Now we get a number of users that have visited this page for each of the dates. You can also use the same approach when you want to extract some values and display them in your table, not necessarily using them as a condition. For example, if you want to get total number of users and page views for a particular page, we could use this condition that we have here. I will just remove it from here and add it instead of date. And let's name it as page URL. Then let's remove this. We don't need it anymore. Group it by page URL. And we will order by users descending order. Let's run this. You can also expand columns if you would like to see full string here. And great, so now we have basically top pages report for the given date range. So we have selected January 2021, and we see top pages grouped by page URL, number of users on that page, and total users that have seen this URL. Hopefully this makes sense, but let me know in the comments if you need any further help with this. We are currently getting data from daily export, but if you would like to query a real-time table, you can just change table name here from events to events intraday. And again, we can do that because this is the table name for real-time data. If you open up your analytics dataset, you will see that for real-time we have events intraday. Okay, so examples that I've showed are pretty simple, but it should be enough to get you started and start exploring how you can build your own reports and use cases. Also, as you have just seen, Google Analytics Export contains a lot of different columns. So you can learn more about what any of those means and what type of data you should expect in export schema documentation. I will add the link in the description. And that's it for today. We have covered why you should consider using BigQuery Export, along with the linking process and simple examples of how to query your data. If you found it useful, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more similar tutorials in the future. If you would like to explore more advanced use cases using real-time data export in BigQuery, please check linked video for more examples. See you in the next one.